We are live here on Coffee with Brian. We're just going to wait for a few people to join us. I'm here with my father, and we're driving across the country. Right now, we're in the middle of Nebraska, and we are just having a good time so far. It's raining. It's pretty cloudy out. I've never done a live stream from a car before, so this is a first for me. I'm not sure how the microphones are sounding, but hopefully they're sounding okay. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. We were just getting into a discussion earlier about the nature of values, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And one of the points that was brought up is, to what extent are values relative versus to what extent are they potentially more universal? Welcome if you're just joining us. We are on a road trip. We are driving through Nebraska. I hope the sound is okay here. The highway shouldn't sound too bad, I hope. So if you're just joining us, let us know how noisy it is or if it's bearable somewhat to listen to. We woke up at 4. We started driving around 4:15-ish, and now it's 9:30 MST. It's 10:30 here where we are in Nebraska. So we've been going for quite a few hours already, and we're gonna stay in Chicago tonight. So yeah. Anyways, we were talking about values and the extent to which values are universal versus relative. What makes something valuable? What makes something universally valuable versus relatively valuable? Remember that, Dad?
I do.
Don't look at the camera. You're driving.
I'm Eric, by the way.
Yeah, that's my dad, Eric. And so we were talking about, like, if a tiger eats a... What's up, Balance Boy? Thank you for joining us. We're glad you're here. We're talking about if a tiger eats a deer, nobody loses their mind. Whoops. Will you hold on a second, everyone?
Still driving.
This is a dangerous operation we're running here. Studio from the road. All right, I got it. If a tiger eats a deer, hey Grizz, welcome. I'm glad you're here. First of all, it says greetings from the internet weirdos, Eric.
Greetings.
Okay, so if a tiger eats a deer, most people aren't thinking like, oh, that's bad or that tiger's evil, right? But then, for some reason, obviously, when we get mixed up with human beings, values become more complicated, good versus evil, right versus wrong. And yeah, that's probably because human beings have more freedom of choice, wouldn't you think?
Well, we have a wide range of choice in how we act, right? We have some things that we do for our own survival, and then most other things we do just because we want to do them.
What do you mean?
Well, everything that the tiger's doing has to do with survival, right? Pretty much. Biological functions.
Right.
For the human, especially for us in this day and age, most of our needs are taken care of.
Yeah.
And we're making other choices. Sometimes those choices impinge on somebody else's freedom.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Where choice is really where it comes into play with humans. It's fascinating. Good morning, Jonathan. I'm glad you're here. It's been a couple weeks since I've heard from you, so I'm glad that we're back in touch now. Thanks for joining us. I am currently here with my dad, Eric, in the belly of Nebraska, and yeah, we are slowly making our way towards Iowa, where the police notoriously pull me over every time. And so hopefully that won't happen this time. Hey, Mercury, thanks for being here, brother. I'm glad you're here. And then we will be in Chicago by, I don't know, 8 o'clock tonight. We'll have some dinner. We will take good care of the dogs who are in the back here. See if you can see. Helios, he's laying down there. I can't pull the camera too far because it's hooked up to all these complicated cords. Chris says, I've seen videos of tigers hugging people. I've even seen roosters showing affection. Yeah, that's a really good point. I've been to an animal sanctuary where I saw a tiger being extremely affectionate, which is another interesting topic. The animal world's ability to show affection, to participate in some sort of consciousness, and to what extent are they their own autonomous souls or beings? That's a really interesting question. Wouldn't you say?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to everyone. Chris is here. He says, good morning, man. Can't stay long. Wanted to say hello to you and your father. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate that. We're really glad you're tuning in for a minute, and hope you have a wonderful day. And yeah, we'll be back on again on Friday, and we'll be in New York on Friday. So tomorrow we'll spend most of our day trying to get to New York, and then Thursday night we'll sleep in New York, and then our last day of driving will be on Friday. So we've got quite a little ways ahead of us, but I think, what do we have, like 1,500 miles left? I think we've knocked out the first 400 or 500, so, or 300 at least. So anyways, and then we started talking about relativity versus fixed values, fixed structures, and to what extent are aspects of our reality, like the postmodernists think, actually relative, as in just a matter of your own perspective. And then how much of reality is objective, and where do you draw that line? Like, where do I end and then the real world starts? And obviously that line's not something that's easily drawn, because if it was, then it would be a whole lot easier to talk about. So
we talked about too what the role of agreement is in people, right? How do we agree on what is okay to do, like in our religion or in our society, in our constitution, and what freedoms we have in that? Are we born into it, or are we in agreement that this is just how we're going to operate? Which animals don't have, right?
yeah, they just do what they do. They don't create societies and structures the same way we do, which is interesting. Well, some animals, like chimps, create more advanced social structures. So, and dolphins and orca whales, but they're not nearly as complicated or nuanced as the ones that we create, at least insofar as our ability to communicate with the material world and make tools and stuff like that. Oh, we have some comments here that I will now read. We've got Griswold Grimm says, I think the key component of our free will is the disconnect we have from nature. And hey, chat folk, that's an interesting thought. Is it our free will that separates us from nature, or is it our free will that allows us to choose to separate from nature? Which one? And then Gris says, potential unique human values, innocence and potential. Yeah, and that the whole topic of innocence and potential is something I'd like to cover as well. In Peterson's, one of his most recent talks, he covered the flaw in thinking of all humans as basically good. And you know how that's a Buddhist teaching? The basic goodness of all, or at least Trungpa Rinpoche talks about that.
Is that underneath it all is a basic goodness?
Yeah, Peterson was saying he doesn't like that, because he thinks that being good requires some sort of work. It's not just, you're not just automatically given that. That's what he was saying.
For my own explorations with meditation, I found that to be true. For me,
that underneath it all, there's something good.
When I get there, yeah, good feelings, good wishes, good intentions are at the base of it all.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's something worth exploring. Let's see here, Bruce. Hey, Bruce, great to see you. The world is multidimensional. We are only vibrating at a specific dimension. There is a frequency band for everything we perceive. That is something that I think is fascinating. And this morning, I was also talking about the difference between looking at the world in fixed structures of language, like good and bad, or right and wrong, evil, stuff like that, and then frequency. What if we removed the linguistic imposition and we just simply allowed the distinction that things are just separate frequencies of energy, and we have the freedom of choice to which frequencies of energy we want to align ourselves with. Although then you get into a problem of relativism, because the refusal to categorize things in their essence and their virtue can be a problem. So it's complicated. Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for joining us. Boy Meets World. Yes, thank you. You say, hey, this is awesome. What's up, guys? I agree. This is really fun, and thank you so much for being here. Chris M says the meek are virtuous, and by meek he means the newly updated Petersonian definition, which is those who have swords but do not use them. So in essence, Dad, what that means is it's not that it's a virtue to be harmless. It's a virtue that you could do harm and you restrain yourself. You refrain from doing harm. But being just merely harmless in of itself there's nothing virtuous about that, according to the Peterson way of looking at it. But he might be missing the distinction that you're offering, which is in essence that the potential that if we are able to uncover and get underneath all the thinking and the mind and the distractions and the all of the whatever people call ego is, and just be in the present moment, is there something essentially good there? And that's what you're presenting. Peaceful, quiet. I mean, that's what you really do find in nature when you really just get into the quietness.
Quiet, so appealing is what we're missing, right? With our current lifestyle, concrete and structures is that quietness, that connection. Just looking at Eckhart Tolle, one of his teachings is just look into a tree, how quiet and still.
Right.
Sending something in you identifies with what's in the tree.
Bruce says if humans are basically good, then there would be no evil. So he said that most people are basically good. He objects to the belief that yourself is only good. Absolutely, yeah. I think that's an important thing to offer, and I have heard him say that before. Although it seems like he pushes the edge of saying that being good isn't just something that you are. Your potential is good, but he doesn't seem to grant that there's some sort of earned ownership over that goodness until you work for it. That's at least how I've experienced it. Although obviously there's multiple interpretations that can be taken from what he says. Griswold Grimm says, I don't know, Bruce. Our ability to disconnect from that goodness, focus love too far inward, seems to be what allows malevolence and cruelty. That's an interesting thought. These are some interesting, we're getting into the weeds now, like what Bruce said, if humans are basically good, then there would be no evil. Well, that's the other question. Is there something beyond good and evil, or are we chained to those polarities indefinitely? Is the universe chained to those polarities? Is good and evil a human universe, or does it exist outside of the human universe? I mean, I know I have a concept of good and evil, but would I be able to say, universally speaking, that there is a totality of good and evil in which there is some force or higher power in the universe that has a conception of good and evil? Or is it just all just being and relative?
So, you want to go down a rabbit hole?
Sure. Go down a rabbit hole.
Sometimes we're operating from consciousness. When we're conscious, And to me, that's a place of good. I'm not saying that we're universally good or always good, but basically good to me means when we're conscious, when we're operating from consciousness. But a whole lot of the time, we're operating from unconsciousness, and we do all kinds of things that we're not proud of, or we wish we didn't do, or that aren't helpful, or hurt other people. But I don't believe those are always conscious acts. They're just like habitual, unconscious doings. And
But don't you still have to take responsibility?
Absolutely. But there's different operations that I notice in myself.
Like what?
Well, I have the potential for good, and in my base, in my core, I'm good. But there's all kinds of times that I'm selfish, or greedy, or unthoughtful, or just irritated.
Yeah.
But I don't find those to be my most conscious times.
When you say conscious, can you give a definition? Because it's such a term that gets thrown around.
Yeah, well, I'm being aware. I'm in tune with what's going on around me. I'm not just tied up with the thoughts and the commotion inside my own head, but I have a feeling of, I'm tapped into a bigger thing than just me.
Yeah, like in a flow.
Yeah. Or just the feeling of when you're in nature, you get tapped into that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, being in nature is an interesting concept because humans are a part of nature, technically speaking. Like we're creatures, and we've created a difference, like a separation, like an intellectual and conceptual and maybe even material separation between us and nature. But it always blows my mind when you go into a city and you look at a skyscraper and then you start thinking, just for a minute, nature kind of made that skyscraper. Not like directly, but like through like the phenotypical expression of human beings. Nature kind of built that. Just like a beaver built the dams, a human built
bees built hives, ants built incredible structures underground, right? So some of it's natural to humans.
Right.
But somewhere they would cross a line, it seems like.
It does. It does. I got to get to some comments here.
Go.
Duality is what binds, says Bruce. We are constantly battling between dualities. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing about being human. And obviously, Jung wrote about that quite a lot, but also other philosophers, Plato even, drew the fundamental distinctions that you can't have day without night or good without evil. And so, yeah, those are all good points that you're bringing up. Balanced Boy says, I believe good and evil remains in the human perspective, but in my opinion, human encompasses God as well. As in, God is a projection almost of the human consciousness, that we are creating our own universe is kind of what I take that as. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and it's, for me, thinking about what exists outside of humans is always an interesting question. Like, okay, so we know there's human values, and those some of them differ across cultures, but a lot of people are pretty fervently committed to the proposition that there's something like a universal human ethic that's worth striving towards. Fine, let's grant that for a second. I'm not sure if that's quantifiable or not, but we can at least grant that for a second. But if that is the case, does that go beyond humans? Does the universe have an interest in values as an entity unto itself? And that's a harder argument to make. I mean, I think Gary Lester said, right now, a coyote is eating a cute little bunny. Joe Rogan said recently, a black hole is swallowing a star. Are you going to say that those things are evil? And if not, why? And is it because something about being human makes the freedom of choice? Is that what it is? Is it the freedom of choice that makes it such a difference?
Yeah, what's the universe think about sustainability?
Like ecological sustainability?
Yeah. I mean, the universe, that's got real implications, right?
Maybe.
Pollution. What does the universe think about just human pollution?
it doesn't probably think anything about it.
Well,
unless there's some sort of entity, like a god.
Yeah, I don't mean think about it, but it has implications for the universe that go way beyond humans.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. I mean, but the Earth is ultimately a blip in many planets, so I don't know. Can anything exist? Michael's. I think did I read Balanced Boy's comment? I believe good and evil remains in the human perspective, but in my opinion, human encompasses God as well. Yeah, I read that. Michael says, can anything exist without human consciousness? I mean, it's all matter and energy outside of ourselves, and it's the human mind that parses the world as we know it. Anyway, hi, Ryan and Ryan's dad. Thank you for joining, Michael, and that's a great comment. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, nothing can really exist to us outside of our own consciousness because that's how we have our own experience. But I would think that there is some sort of reality out there that goes beyond humanity, that even if we don't know what that looks like because we only experience it through our limited, cognitive tools and perceptive abilities.
Is it just human consciousness, or is consciousness a bigger term? We're tapping humans.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Bruce says, it's at a quantum level. We are blinking in and out of existence. That could be like good and evil, dark and light, duality. Great discussions. Got to keep drilling holes in this house. Yeah, that's great, Bruce. Thanks for tuning in and leaving your comments, and we really appreciate it. Worm says, I have known many men that talk a big game about hating this group or that group, but when it comes down to the individual interaction, they behave in direct opposition to their own rhetoric. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why Peterson's teachings that you act out your beliefs is so powerful. And there's another old saying, like, pay attention to what people do, not what they say. Because you say one thing and then you do another. You kind of talk about that sometimes.
What someone's actions you want to hear, get your response. Watch how they act, not just what they say.
When did you first learn that?
I don't know when I first learned it, but it certainly seems to be true over and over again that people almost talk unconsciously a lot of times. And then if you want to see what they're really feeling, you see what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We get conditioned to answer in a certain way.
What do you mean?
Well, we get conditioned to answer into what somebody else wants to hear, what we're expected to say, or just haven't thought it through, and we just answer. But then later, our actions show what our true feelings are. What we really want.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm going to read. Mercury Black says, great point, Worm. Balanced Boy says, perhaps we will never have the answers to these humans versus nature questions because we are human and can never escape the human mind perspective. Yes, it's hard to escape that. That's for sure. Futile, probably. Chris M says, a good reference on this particular subject, if anyone is interested, is Carl Jung, Psychological Types, I always mispronounce this, the syzygy, which, that's a good recommendation. Michael says, what I meant to say is that we partake in the co-creation of the universe, kind of like the lichen, symbiotic relationships, just more abstract. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's getting into some deep rabbit holes there about how much are we participating in what's happening around us. Some people would say that we're creating our own universes. That's where you get into more woo category. Other people would say that at the very least you're creating your own perspective within your mind, within your brain. So that's important too. Bruce says, hi, Ryan's dad. Have an amazing trip, fellas. Thank you, Bruce. We really appreciate it. Worm says, we escape our individualist perspective by amalgamating the perspective of many across time. That's a really great sentence, and I think I know what you mean by that. As far as I'm thinking of that from almost an evolutionary viewpoint, and how we use both current time and our ancestral experience to make sense of our reality. But I'm not sure if that's exactly what you mean. So if you mean something different, or you want to say more about that. Omkar says, everything just happens, no one is in control. What do you think about that?
Is that like a predetermined, everything's predetermined? Is that from that world of
Determinism?
perspective? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they can, if you want to expand on that, Omkar, you can write in the chat. Yeah, I think there is a deterministic aspect to that. I mean, there's also a deterministic aspect to reality.
I mean, you can get into the whole free will. Is there a free will?
Yes.
Or are we all just all conditioned response?
What do you think?
I don't have a definitive answer on it. I'm still exploring it. I mean, but we're definitely a product of our culture, right? We've been conditioned and programmed to act in certain ways at certain times.
Right.
We also have biological things happen to us. So I'm still in the exploration of that. Is there? I like to think that I'm operating out of my free will a lot of the time, but I'm not convinced.
You're not convinced?
No.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Wow. Mercury and I talked about that before. He's not convinced either. At least that's the impression I get. However, it seems like at least we have the illusion of making choices, right?
Yeah, I think we are making choices.
I think so.
But even the choices are conditioned.
Conditioned by what?
So much over culture. Just how we were raised and what we feel.
I don't know about that.
What we're supposed to do.
I don't know about that. You think culture has that big of an impact on your choices?
Yes. Huge. In parental
I think it has
and family.
A lot of the data that's coming out is showing that parenting has less of an impact on psychological personality, not like your trauma and memories and so forth, but your actual who you are than people have made seem. A lot of data has come out on that. That the parenting, children grow up in spite of you, not because of you. Not that parenting doesn't matter. Of course it matters, but I don't know. I don't think the last word's out on that. I think that we might be more or less, who we are, and we fit into culture and society, and we interact with it. But I'm not sure how much. I mean, culture certainly has an impact, but I'm not sure how much.
But you're going to the genetic side of the argument.
Yeah,
right?
genetic side. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge too. I'm not denying that.
Yeah. Here we go. We've got some comments. Thank you all for being here. Omkar says, yes, your dad is right. Damn it, I've been hoping my whole life that he was wrong. And now I know he's right, and that's just a bummer. Okay. Here we go. Worm says, we must embrace to collective knowledge of all mankind or we are lost. Yes. We do have to learn from each other, and that goes pretty deep for sure. Griswold Grimm coming out with a Pythagoras quote. That is ancient as shit. Wow. No one is free who has not obtained the empire of himself. No one is free who cannot command himself. And legend has it, if I'm not mistaken, that Pythagoras was born inside of a volcano. At least that's what I've heard. Boy Meets Work says, personally, I remain totally agnostic on the question of consciousness. I don't even know if we have a great way to define consciousness or will. Heck, even life is slippery to define. Absolutely. You know what I really care about at the end of the day? How to live a good life and how to be good to your family, how to be honest, how to, feel like you have meaning. And all this stuff I'm talking about, it's all bells and whistles to me. It's like, what's really important is how can we live in a way that's meaningful? And then like the theories that go around it are important, but they should develop from experience, not just speculation. So I think that practicing things in action is more important than just conceptualizing them personally. So if I can't live it out, sometimes it just feels like it's philosophical masturbation. Like you're just doing it for the pleasure of speaking about ideas, which I like. Which is it's not a bad thing, but it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What I just finished that Sam Harris's wife's book, Consciousness.
How was that? By Annika Harris?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was great. And there's another book that Roger Strachan had recommended me, and I read when I was doing his training. I can't remember what it is, but it talks about, consciousness. No, the science can't explain it.
Biocentrism by Robert Lansing.
That's it.
Yeah.
It is that, the possibility is that it's the source. It's the very essence of things. Therefore, it can't be described, can't be discovered, can't be
Right.
formulated that way, because it's the basic essence of the universe.
It's like water to fish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that. I just love that thought of just, and so when I think of getting back to consciousness, is getting back to essence. And when I connect to nature, that's what's happening.
Wow. Was that book good by Annika Harris?
Yeah, it's really good.
I listened to part of the interview that her and Sam did. It was interesting, to say the least. Kind of flies in the face of what Tim Freak has been telling me, which is that consciousness has emerged as a phenomena within humanity, whereas what she seems to be saying is that even objects potentially can have consciousness.
Absolutely.
So I would be interested to see what Tim's response to that would be, because I've had some interesting conversations with him. Okay,
that goes back to what I said. I mean, I think we're tapping into a consciousness. It isn't necessarily our consciousness.
right.
Isn't necessarily a human experience, but flowers, rocks, trees.
Just is all over, permeates reality. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Okay, we've got some more comments here, and yeah, boy meets work. I do think that the agnosticism is warranted. Absolutely. Dusty Dust says, I'm a Calvinist, but I do think we have some limited aspect of agency and will. And where does that line begin? Where does determinism end and free will begin? Do you have any idea? Is it linear? Is it random? Is it depending on the situation? Griswold Grimm, I love that, says Boy Meets World. Here's a deep question. Hey Gloff, thank you for joining us. I just came in here. Mercury Black says, Eric, as a father, what was it like watching Ryan succumb to addiction in his teens, and what do you think about what he's doing with the channel now?
Wow. Yeah, it was hell. It was also looking in the mirror, because I had to deal with my own addiction. Ryan was in a program in Georgia, and he said, all right, Dad, I'll do this thing. I'll do it. But what are you going to do? It won't do me any good to get well if you're still sick. And I dealt with my own alcoholism. Was dealing with it. I had dried up, but anyway. And
Did you say you dried up?
I was not drinking at the time, but then I went into the spiritual path, 12 steps, and those kind of things. So it was a joint search in many ways. But it was hell watching someone you love be out of control and give up things that they loved, and see that they had succumbed to it. And then to watch the journey has been amazing. To watch Ryan take it on, not just sobriety, but to take on searches of psychology and consciousness and all those things, and now delivering a message to the world. I couldn't be prouder.
Thanks, Dad. That's really nice. Yeah, I feel lucky to be alive, that's for sure. And let alone being alive, I get to talk to people like you all, who are very smart, intelligent individuals that care to have conversations like this. So and you care to have conversations like this. So that's pretty great.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Although I do think that we still have to bear the question: when are we just participating in philosophical masturbation just for the sake of talking about how many angels can dance on the head of a pen? And when are we talking in terms of things that can actually assist us in living good lives? Because I think, and it's not bad. I like enjoying I like smoking a cigar every once in a while. Just like the pleasure of a conversation. I don't view any of that as, irrelevant to my life. I just think it's a useful concept to explore. When are concepts just, trivial?
To me, I love Eckhart Tolle's approach to it as, all of us are in a purpose to awaken, become conscious, and then as a society to move towards consciousness. And we're definitely, not there. So to me, any conversation that can move the needle towards a more conscious society is worth having.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful answer to that. Michael says, Griswold says, LOL, anyone born in a volcano had a batshit mom. Talking about Pythagoras, that's funny. Michael says, culture and biology definitely has influence, but don't you think we rely on determinism as an excuse to not do anything? I prefer to overcompensate on free will like Nietzsche. Yeah, I mean, I'm biased. I believe in free will. My training with Dr. Strachan is pretty much based on the concept that we have choice. So that's how I work with my life. I work under the assumption that I have some choices within the limitations of the determinism of life. I have choices. However, yeah, I'm not interested in like having a big argument about it, because it just whatever it is. And if it helps me to act as if I have choice and I don't, then that's fine. And if it helps somebody else to act as if everything's determined and it's not, then that's fine too. But I do think you're right that we need to avoid anything that can slough off personal responsibility as a mechanism for self-growth, because that's the key, is not treating ourselves as victims, but taking responsibility for, we can't control everything, but we can control some things. And what we do have control over is how we respond to life circumstances, how we work with our biology, how we work with our moods, our emotions, our random happenings in relationships and so forth. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a predeterminist. I mean, other than that, I know I'm going to die. At least this body is. So yeah, that's the other extreme, isn't it, of the free will argument. There's definitely things outside my control, and definitely powers greater than me.
Yeah.
But I believe I'm co-creating my life.
Right.
Co-creating existence.
Right. Absolutely. By the way, I almost forgot. We got a donation this morning from I didn't have a chance to look. I saw a PayPal notification. So I want to find out what the person's first name was so I can give them a shout out. It just came in before we streamed, but I don't know where my phone is right now, so I'm not going to be able to see. So I'll give you a shout out in the next stream. But thank you so much, whoever donated. I saw the PayPal notification on my phone, so I know that somebody made a donation. And Mercury and I really appreciate that. And yeah, it was a very generous $50 donation, so thank you. And I'll make sure to give you a warm thanks via email, and as well a shout out on the next stream once I find out what your first name is. I never tell people the last name because it's a privacy issue, but I do like to just say, hey, Dan or whoever gave a donation, and so we really appreciate it. And Mercury just found out right now, so maybe he'll be happy about that. Boy Meets Wart says, well, actually, I'm going to read Gloff's and Grizz's first. Grizz says, with that view of consciousness, our ability to focus is a hell of a lot more impressive. And Gloff says, what's up, Cowboys? What's up, Big H? I like that, Big H. Boy Meets Wart says, I think that just like self-driving cars are forcing us to address the always hypothetical trolley problem. The development of AI is going to force us to hammer out a definition of consciousness. Yeah, that's brilliant. And we will have to. And people like Annika Harris and Sam Harris.
That was a big point in her book.
What did she, really? She made that point in her book?
Of some
Boy
of
Meets
these,
World
some of
always
these
does that.
AIs are, are they conscious? I mean, they're
Right.
reading things and doing things, and
Last time Boy Meets World also had a comment that was like, paralleled with one of Jung's brilliant theories. So Boy Meets World's on fire with the comments here. Yeah, I think that's correct. Death to Death says, I think it's kind of a paradox when it comes to will and predestination. I find the more I learn, the more paradoxes I see. Yeah, like at both ends, a paralogical truth. It's not one way or another, but somehow those two tensions coexist within a bigger spectrum. Gloff says, consciousness is fucking amazing, to be honest. There's no apparent reason why we have the experience of experience. It is amazing. Let's be grateful for that for a minute. That's really wonderful, isn't it? Imagine if we didn't know we were having an experience. Wow. Well, some people say that's the whole Garden of Eden thing. It's like,
but sometimes we are not conscious that we're having an experience, that we're just not, most of the studies say we're 98% unconscious actions. That's what we do all day long.
Automatic, yeah.
Automatic.
That's right.
The next thing.
That's been validated. Yeah, that's validated.
We're not even
neuroscience. But they say, Peterson talks about this in Maps of Meaning, that to be cast out of the Garden of Eden, in some sense, is the burden of being conscious. It's the burden of consciousness. It's the burden of knowing that you're having an experience, to be the experiencer of an experience.
Where does the word burden come from? I don't feel it.
Well, he calls it the burden of being. That's what, in the burden is the awareness of suffering and malevolence, which is intrinsic to human nature. And then the path to redemption is obviously the path of Christ, the redemptive hero, who goes out into the unknown willingly, in spite of his suffering, and consciously makes the choice to carry the cross uphill and live a life of meaning. That's how he looks at it.
That's cool.
You like that?
That's cool. Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah, it's freaking cool. I love that. What do you think about it, though?
Well, what I was stumbling on is just, the consciousness doesn't seem like a burden. It just seems like, the allure of this beautiful thing that I just can't stop, pursuing in any venue that I can. So, I guess there's a responsibility to it.
Yeah.
But I don't feel a burden.
Yeah, well, Peterson has a tendency to look at the worst of things and then build the best off of that.
The extremes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so Omkar says, life is suffering until you see the one who suffers is not. I don't know what that... Do you pick that up? Life is suffering until you see the one who's suffering. That went over my head.
What is suffering is not done.
I think you lost us there, Omkar. Maybe we're missing something, or maybe it's obvious to everybody but us. Can you expand a little bit? We would love to understand what you mean. Cool picture of a lion on your profile, by the way. Gloff says, I'm not sure how I feel about machine AI. Technology was intended to serve humanity, not the other way around. Yeah. I agree. Hopefully it doesn't get to the point where we have to serve technology. Although it already kind of is like that, because we're slaves to our social media. must be engaged with that. Mercury says, Eric, is there any advice you have for Ryan and me about doing this YouTube channel? Is there anything that you would like to see us do with it?
Gosh, you're doing it. You guys are just pouring it out from the heart. So, I'd just like to see it make a difference. You know, you're making a difference in people's lives. And you guys are coming from the heart, and you're not holding back any punches, and I fucking love it. So just keep going, man. Just keep going. See where it takes you. You know, don't be all caught up on where it's going. Let it take you.
Yeah. Thanks. That's awesome.
Thanks for the question.
Mercury's asking great questions. Griswold Grimm says, I think AI will tell us its definition of consciousness and ask us to quit calling it artificial. Wink. That's a great comment. That's great. Griswold Grimm says, I almost read that twice. Michael says, speaking of which, when did we start comparing the human mind to a computer? I recall the early tech guys comparing the computer to the brain. Not mind, but brain. Yes, that's right. The computer has famously been compared to a brain. And I think the idea of a computer having a mind is, it's conflating it with some sort of self-awareness or consciousness. Yeah.
Well, and our computer's going to be stereotypical and prejudicial and make judgments and all those things that the mind does. You know?
Right. Because an algorithm is just doing what it does. It's not. Yeah, it's not.
We just make jumps and leaps and, assumptions.
Yeah.
You're going to do that?
Yeah. Ben Jules says, I don't think we'll ever be able to define consciousness in the same way that I can't prove positively that anyone besides myself is conscious. For all we know, every object has consciousness too. Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? We certainly can't prove that everything isn't just a figment of our imagination. There's no possible way of proving that indefinitely that I've come across.
Do you exist?
Yeah, you can prove that you exist because you're having an experience.
Then you prove consciousness.
Yeah, but you can't prove that. I can't prove that you're conscious too. You could just be a little part of my dream, or I could be a part of your dream. But I don't find that to be a very tenable thing because it just doesn't feel true at all. Like, it really feels like you are all real. Like it would be a severe disappointment to find out that I'm the only one here.
As much as when we talked about getting back to the base and getting tapped into a consciousness, for me, the only thing I'm totally sure when I get to that place is that I exist.
That's all you can be sure
I'm having, or somebody mentioned the
experience.
I'm having this experience. I am here.
Yes.
To me, that's
the basis of meditation.
We can mess with the words, but to me, that's proof of consciousness.
Right. Yes, I agree with that. Okay, so Dust to Dust says, people are already bossed around by algorithms on YouTube. That's correct. I think Mercury says, I think Omkar is referring to the illusion of the self when they said that which suffers is not. I agree with that. That makes perfect sense because maybe the true self is that which suffers not. So that puts it all in perspective. Thank you.
Suffering is optional.
Suffering, yeah, yep. Chris M says, regarding experience, sure, you do know you had an experience, but to what degree are you aware of its effect on you? I think that is the central question to personal transformation. Yeah?
Well, I like it, but of course, the effect it had on you is the experience itself, right? That's what I'm struggling with a little bit, is how do you know what effect it had?
How do you separate the effect from the experience? Is that...
well, I think maybe you can.
You can't?
That is the experience. The experience, when you've had an experience, it's an impression on you, right? Forever.
Well, then he says experience exists as such, but are subjective to the recipient.
Well, yeah.
It's nice not to have to answer all these questions.
I don't have a problem with
these
it.
comments.
I don't have a problem with it because it's my experience. Yes, it's subjective to me because it's my experience. Well, one thing is, so I've had that experience. The other thing I get caught up in all the time, okay, and then I have to explain the experience. So then I put it in language. And everything can't be flipped and explained. You know, we're always trying to put words around and explain things that are like, if you have a godlike experience, it's inexplainable.
Right.
But yet we try to.
Poetry is the closest thing.
Yeah.
Right? To explaining a godlike experience?
I don't know.
Or that's what I would assume. Or art.
Oh, to linguistic explanation of it, you mean?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either.
Yeah. Boy Meets World says Mercury Black. That's a super interesting thought and an interesting juxtaposition. I think, therefore, I am. I'll have to think on that one. Griswold says self is the river, experience are the banks. That reminds me of Siegel's idea.
What was that?
The river and then the two river banks and chaos and rigidity and flow in between.
I don't remember.
It's in this book of Mindset. Anyways,
I don't remember. It's a great book.
Experience are the banks. Yeah, I like that a lot. Experience, but then that would that insinuate that the experience is what's containing the self? The experience is what's containing consciousness?
Well, you go back to the duality, right? We have consciousness, or at least elements of consciousness that are universal.
Right.
But then we have a self that has all these biological needs and judgments and actions. So it's operating within consciousness, sometimes unconscious. Is that where it's going? Is that duality that it's explaining?
I don't know. My head's going to explode. We've only been on this stream for an hour, but we've been talking about this for 3.
Or the other analogy I like is Eckhart Tolle says it one way, and I just read somebody else. Douglas Harding saying another way.
Douglas Harding?
Yeah, is life is the dancer, I am the dance. You know, that life is coming and happening, all these things.
It's just happening, yeah.
And I'm the dance, I'm the space in which all these things are occurring.
Right.
And that's what maybe a different. That's where I took it. The river comment.
That's great. Michael says, I don't think genuine AI is possible. Computers are the extrapolation of the rational faculty working within a closed system. That said, all totalitarianism is systematic and a closed system. Yes, and I don't really, I kind of agree with that because it does seem, I just think it seems kind of arrogant that humans think that they can create robots that are conscious. Why do we think that's possible? That literally is the power of God, to create something that's conscious. That's the power of nature.
Well, if a rock is conscious, why can't a machine be conscious?
Yeah, again, we're struggling here with it. We don't have a working definition of consciousness for this conversation. So
and there may not be one.
Yeah, so maybe robots could be conscious, but it just strikes me as fairly Promethean. The Promethean myth of the Titan. He continues to try to overcome the gods and sneak one past them and cheat them basically without making the proper sacrifices, and he pays for it. The Titans versus the Olympians. one of my professors said that the Titanic was the worst name they could have come up with that boat, because if you know anything about mythology, the Titans were banished to the bottom of the ocean. So when they call it the Titanic, the Titans were banished to the bottom of the ocean for having the arrogance to try to overcome the Olympians. And the Titanic was said to be the greatest thing in the whole world, an unsinkable ship. It's more powerful than anything. And there it goes, straight down to the bottom. I guess the gods don't like it when you assume that you're more powerful than them. Well, that's all from a Jungian perspective, at least. And when I say gods, you could just say the nature of being as such isn't pleased when you assume more power than you have. But anyways, okay, here we go. We've got some more comments. Gloff says, maybe I missed this, but I'm seeing it now. Is there any such thing as an objectively experienced experience? One thing everything experiences the exact same way. Would that exist? Like a unification of all? Well, in Hinduism, that would be like Brahman, the one, or Purusha, the Almighty, the totality, the gestalt of the universe. That's an interesting comment. I can't answer that, so it's a good question, man. I certainly don't have the answer.
Maybe it's experiencing consciousness.
Gloff says, humans need to stop wanting to play God. Yeah, I think some humility would be good. You know, we have this great power with technology, but I think it's important to be humble about it, because if we start thinking we're more powerful than nature, it won't take much to put us back in our place. Even if we mastered the Earth, which I don't think is possible, I think the Earth is still more powerful than humanity. We could still get hit by a solar flare or an asteroid, or anything could happen. I mean, we're not as powerful as we think. Mercury says, self is water, rivers are experience. Boy Meets World says, and all rivers lead to the sea. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's fantastic. And that leads to that oneness that Gloff is talking about. One thing, everything experiences the exact same way. Yeah. Michael says, my optimism lies on the fact that Skinner's Walden 2 ideology didn't come to pass. Behaviorism is true, but to a point. AI works, but to a point. Yeah, and I think that you're on firm ground to make those claims until proven otherwise. Even though a lot of experts speak about AI as if there's more to it than that. So, but I think that that's a reasonable place to be with it. The real Dust says the real question is bacon on a cheeseburger or not. Definitely bacon. You know, if you're gonna have cheese and a burger, you might as well have bacon. There's no reason not to have the bacon, especially if you're already having a burger. So I think that settles that. Griswold Grimm says, don't know if we can, Gloff. A fractal of in our image. Yeah, created in the image of God. Makes it hard not to play God, I guess, doesn't it? Gloff says, I don't think such an experience could exist because it would take two beings identical in every way in order to experience, including impossible characteristics such as the exact location, etc. Yes, but you're also conflating certain boundaries on what's possible there. Like it has to be within beings, it has to be within a certain location. It could be some sort of like transcendent godlike force that we don't know about. Griswold Grimm says, bacon is hard for me after seeing factory farms. Yeah, I don't blame you. Those are some brutal things. Boy Meets World says, at Gloff, the only thing I can think of might be death. Yeah. Well, a lot of people explain having similar near-death experiences. Have you ever heard of those?
I've heard of near-death experiences, but I haven't heard of them being similar.
Yeah, like seeing similar images, having similar experiences of the afterlife, having similar like forces or guardians come talk to them. And then the other weird thing is people report seeing the same things when they take DMT, like these little gnome-like creatures, which is like it's been reported widely, but I haven't seen any like real scientific research on it, so it makes me wonder.
Well, I've wondered if at death, if everyone doesn't hit this point of consciousness, at the point of death, like we go through our whole life unconscious, but when you finally meet and take that last breath, is that what that question is pointing at? Because I do think
I don't know. But the bardo, like in Tibetan, the levels
49 days.
It's 49 days of bardo. Isn't there like 7 levels of bardo or something?
7 levels, yeah.
7 levels of bardo. That's a fascinating thought. God, this damn seatbelt's getting on my microphone. Hold on, sorry everyone. The levels of bardo. This is fun. I've never done a live stream in a car. We've been streaming for an hour. This is cool. Boy Meets World says, definitely not exactly true, but the only thing I think could be close, passing into non-being, it's really an interesting question, man. I think he's talking about death with Gloff. Michael says, have you ever had maple bacon hot chocolate? No. I'm going to put that on my list of things to try.
I'm not.
You're not?
That doesn't sound good to me. Sounds a little sweet.
Too sweet?
Yeah.
How much coffee can I drink before it's just not healthy? Do you know? Is there a limit? Is there like a doctor's limit?
Which doctor?
And just
doctor would say none.
Just an agreed upon. Is it like so, if I went to the doctor right now, would they say?
So here's what
you've had way too much coffee today, man. You need to I'm really worried.
Your Uncle Gurney said. He said, Gurney, how do you have? You've had bacon and eggs every day of your life and all that cholesterol and everything. He's 97 years old. He said, Ernie, what's your doctor say about that? My Uncle Ernie said, doctor's dead.
Doctor's dead.
So that's what the doctor's opinion is.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, there is research out there that coffee helps your heart health, so we got that going for us.
There's research for everything.
There's also research for everything. That's true. Okay, so Gloff says Joe Rogan says they're mapping the DMT realm. I heard you say that the DMT machines elves whisper you shouldn't be here to you on that trip. Yeah, I've never met the DMT machine elves. If anybody knows a DMT dealer, I would be willing to risk my sobriety for a couple of hits of DMT. No, I'm just kidding. Probably wouldn't do that. Hey, we're almost in Lincoln, Nebraska. 44 miles and we'll be in Lincoln. What is the university there in Lincoln? The Huskies? Huskies, yeah. Anybody here a Husky? Anyone here live in Nebraska? We got any Nebraskans in the house? Anyone close? Okay. Bounce Boy says, I would say more than 3 cups is pushing it. Talking about coffee. 750. Chris says, I lived in Nebraska when I was a child. That's awesome. It's really green here right now. It's clearly been raining a lot this summer. Pretty flat, lots of cornfields. Interesting. I prefer hills and valleys myself, but it's a nice change of scenery from Colorado where we are. Oh gosh, we got some good comments about coffee here. But first, Dustin Dust says Edgar Cayce talks about all kinds of different spiritual creatures. Still not sure what to think about him. Edgar Cayce, that might be worth looking up. Well, Mercury might have something to say about spiritual creatures. He's definitely had some encounters. Gloff says, no such thing as too much coffee. My favorite thing to do on vacation is drink a ton of coffee. Thank you for saying that, Gloff. I was waiting for someone to validate my habit, and you've done it. So that's all I needed. That'll cancel out anybody who warned me against it. And I'll just keep on chugging along. So, Griswold Grimm says, I can vouch that 2 pots a day hasn't proved immediately fatal. How long has this experiment been running? I'd like to know. I'd like to see if this could work out for me. Going through Minnesota. I don't think we're going through Minnesota. We're going to visit. I'm going to go meet my great aunt, Ethel, who I've never met. In Freedom, New York. Apparently, what do they own? A farm?
Yeah, they do. They don't actively farm anymore, but they live on a
How
farm.
many acres?
I don't know.
So we're going to go visit good old Aunt Ethel. And she's 85, and apparently she's excited to see us. And you haven't seen her in how long?
She came to my dad's funeral about 6 years ago. It was the last time I saw her.
Nice.
She came to our my wedding.
Yeah.
About 29 years ago.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen her much. But 39 years ago, my mother, your grandmother, and I took this trip, and we stopped to see him at this farm. So I haven't been to the farm in 39 years.
How is the farm? Is it pretty?
You're gonna know.
New York is a beautiful place. Does anyone here live in New York? New York is a beautiful place. It's especially when you get into the country. I'm not talking about New York City. You know, I'm not a big city guy, but cities are great. Cities are like fun for like a couple hours. You know, you ever go to downtown Denver and it's fun for like an hour or two, and then you're like, I like living next to the farmland and keeping it a little quiet. Cities are too busy. You lived in Boston for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, and I love working there, but like you're saying, on the weekends, I just couldn't wait to blast out.
Get the hell out of there, yeah.
I lived in LA for a while.
Yeah.
And that was tougher to get out of.
I know some people that are, you lived in LA?
Yeah, for 2 years.
I didn't even know that. What was it like to live in LA?
I had friends there. I had a good job there. It was great.
Nice to meet you.
But it was, and we did different things. Say, bike riding down to the beach and that kind of stuff.
Was it really populated by the time you got there?
Oh, yeah.
When was it, in the 80s?
Yeah, it was 88, 9, 87 and 8, something like that.
Holy shit.
There were people I worked with that driving 2 hours to work.
What were you doing when you were in LA? What were you
working for? The Australian. Remember Blair?
Blair, what was his last name?
Howie. Blair Howe.
You worked for him? So what were you doing? You were just traveling salesman or what?
I traveled most of the time.
Wow.
Doing real estate.
LA. I couldn't live in LA. I'd go nuts. Okay. Chris M says Lincoln. You grew up in Lincoln? Is that what you're trying to say? Or are you referring to something else? Boy Meets Wart says that would be fascinating, Gloff, to experiment. We definitely need to expand the study of these drugs. It is another way we can get more insight by figuring out how the chemicals interact. I think he's talking about the DMT experiment. Gloff says, I kind of don't want to do DMT because I don't want to spoil death. Yeah, I don't really want to do any drugs besides psilocybin. That's the only drug I would currently consider doing. And I wouldn't do it unless it was like obviously necessary, which would never happen. But if there was like some huge synchronicity where psilocybin fell out of the sky and landed in my lap, I would take that as a sign of readiness. But yeah, that's the only thing I've been wanting to do. And I don't even, like, I would never seek it out. It would just happen or not. So, because I just value my sobriety and I don't want to
But
risk that.
the DMT is treated as a medicine plant, not as a
Ayahuasca, but
yeah.
DMT you can also extract it just smoking. It gets you high for like 5 minutes, and you get super high, and then you come back.
Ayahuasca is a medicine.
Ayahuasca is a medicine, yeah. Although I think I would take psilocybin before I ever tried ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Although Colton did just do his ayahuasca, and he talked a little bit about it on our last podcast, but not very much. And said it was extremely powerful. So, yeah, that's that. Michael says, bro, I already had 3 cups of coffee, and it's only noon. 4 more cups, and I'll reach my daily average. Well, if you're trying to make me feel better, it's working. I can be known to drink quite a bit of coffee, but I go back and forth. Like sometimes I'll only have a couple cups, sometimes I'll have 3, sometimes I'll really go hard, sometimes I'll take a day where I only have 1 cup. It just depends on what's going on in my life. But yeah, I've been thinking I need to stop drinking coffee for a couple weeks and just totally cleanse my whole body from it, and then decide if I want to try it again. But I'm just afraid of the initial headache I'm going to get from the first couple days. So I'm putting it off. And I've been putting it off for years. So actually, well, I did get really sick last year. And I had to quit drinking coffee because I was so sick I didn't feel like drinking coffee. And I was already so sick, so the withdrawal period didn't make it that much worse. Because it's like if you have a fever, adding a coffee headache on top of that isn't going to be that much worse. So then I stopped drinking for 4 days, and then I started drinking it again. But I'd like to do an intentional coffee cleanse at some point. I just haven't mustered up the conviction to do so. But eventually I'll do that. And then I'll have to call these streams No Coffee with Ryan or something else. No, I'll probably just keep the name and just not tell you. Or maybe I will. I don't know. I can't make up my mind. Gloff says, I only have 1 or 2 cups a day. That's great. Except for when you're on vacation. Apparently you drink lots of coffee on vacation. You've told us that much. Are either of you farmers or gardeners? Yes, Dad's a prolific farmer. No, he's not. No. But Uncle Kevin's a farmer. We've seen him.
Oh, yeah.
We got family friends who are farmers.
Yeah.
You grew up farming?
I grew up working on Spook's farm.
You grew up working on a farm. I've worked Spook's farm, who's a family friend. He's in his 70s now. He's been farming his whole life. I worked his farm.
81.
He's 81 now, excuse me. And I helped him hay for quite a few summers. Has anyone out here ever done haying? It's quite a job. Your hands get calluses. Bringing it into the barn, stacking it. I'm allergic to hay, so it was really rough on me. When you get in the barn, I could do it outside just fine on the tractor, stacking it and baling it. But once we had to stack it in the barn, where there was no ventilation, I would get so red and itchy, and my eyes would just be watering nonstop. It's a rough job. I love doing it though. Maybe they'll have some haying for us this summer. I would love that. I love putting my headphones in and baling hay for 4 hours. Just woof. It's fun. It's tough work though. All right, stacking wood's pretty good too. Mercury says, I've done plenty of haying in my youth. I'm glad that you have. It's a great experience. You've probably done a lot more than me since you lived on farms your whole life. Balance Boy said, I'm missing a couple. Sorry. Okay, Dustin says, I'm the consciousness of caffeine displayed as ghost on the internet. As a ghost on the internet. That's funny. Michael says, Ontario, Canada here, and bro, I want to go biking through Colorado and Nevada. That or hit up the Rockies in my side of the border. The Rockies are amazing. Cities are only good for work and meeting girls to a point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the Rockies are beautiful no matter where you go. They're just amazing. It's an amazing mountain range. Colorado, it's just amazing if you ever get the chance to go to Rocky Mountain National Park. I'd like to visit the Canadian Rockies, and I brought my passport with me. So if I feel like heading up to Canada sometime in the next month or so, I can do so. So I might be unexpectedly going to Canada, visiting Mercury, doing some filming with Merc, and then maybe I'll go to Toronto and knock on Dr. Peterson's door just to see if he's ready for me to interview him yet. We'll see. Okay. Yodo, you only die once, says Gloff. I'm going to catch up on all these comments. Don't worry. Chris Wilgrim says, tell that to the reincarnations. Missed the context. Sorry, Grizz. Gloff said, I should do a coffee cleanse. Yeah, maybe we should do a coffee cleanse challenge together sometime. But just not today or tomorrow or the day after that. We're talking weeks. I'm talking next year sometime. Balance Boy says, I've been using coffee as a sort of party drug lately. It helps me stay sober. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, coffee is good. A lot of people in 12-step recovery, AA, stuff like that, use coffee to kind of take the edge off. So that's always good. I don't like it when people say, like to people who are sober from like drugs and alcohol, who used to be heroin addicts and cocaine addicts and alcoholics, and they say, well, don't you know coffee's still a drug? It's like, yeah, like my life isn't being totally ruined by coffee, so why don't you just like let me have my little victory here and leave me alone? That's what I think about that. So I think that's a ridiculous distinction to make. Even though coffee is technically speaking a drug. So is a lot of things. Balance Boy says, oh yeah, I already read that. Michael says, Gloff, they revived my grandmother when she was 86 and she went to live for another 12 years. Technically speaking, she died twice. Wow. Jonathan says, I've been trying to limit my coffee intake. However, now I have the urge to get another cup. Sorry. That'll do it. That'll do that to you, talking about it too much. I'm thinking about it now too. I've got some coffee in the back, some cold brew. I have to crack that open here soon. Mercury. Oh, Gloff says, well, Michael, she is an exception. Mercury Black says, I have a diploma from McGill in farm management and technology. But I forget a lot of what I learned. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that the other day when we were on the phone. I'd be curious to hear more about that sometime. Gloff says, that's badass, Merc. Merc says, I've done plenty of hang in my youth. I read that already. Grizz says, off to seize the day. Well, be well. All right, Grizz, have a great day. Thanks for hopping in. Gloff says, Canada has the worst dating market in the world for men, as is the case for many large cities, New York City and LA. What makes it so? Just lack of population? What do you like? Where's this come from? Dust says later, Grizz. Gloff says to meet girls, get hobbies, and get interesting. Okay, got it. Mercury says, Eric, you surely remember life before the internet fad took over. What do you think the effect of cell phones and social media is having on the younger generations that never experienced pre-digital life?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the internet, I remember first doing emails in 1996.
First doing emails? Whoa.
1996 when I was getting my doctorate.
How did you get shit done before that?
Year. Faxed.
You faxed?
Used the fax machine or telephone.
Maybe send some mail by a horse?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a real dichotomy, is that it's on one level, look at this, making available like this chat, how people are communicating and learning things, and there's education and things, consciousness, things going on all over the planet. On the other side of it, we're so tied into it that we can't pay attention to the people that we're with. So I think it's both a lot better and a lot worse in different ways.
Do you think we'll adjust? Do you think we'll, as a species, learn how to not let it run our lives. And just because it's so new right now, it's taking over as an addiction.
Seems like that's going to be an individual choice. So some people will, right? And where's the balance of it?
Because I've been lately realizing when I'm looking at my phone too much, even if it's for work or just pure entertainment, I just like put that sucker down.
How much of it's just for distraction?
Like, what am I waiting? Like, I use the excuse I'm waiting for somebody might call me. maybe somebody needs me. Like I'm not that important. Like I can not answer a couple calls or let a couple emails go by. I'm not gonna die.
Yeah, I think it's a balancing act because it also has opened up so much. In the world, just to communicate across the world.
Yeah.
Like this wouldn't be possible.
This is an extremely cool thing. You are on a road trip with us right now. We are cruising through Nebraska, and you're with us. I mean, digitally, but still, you're here. I'm talking to you. It feels like you're here. We're sharing in that experience together. That's pretty special. That's amazing. It's like any tool. You can use a shovel to dig a hole, or you can hit someone over the head with it. It could be a murder weapon. It's just a shovel. I mean, you could dig a hole with it. You could murder someone. You could bury the body with it. You could do a lot of things with a shovel. The technology, it's like, it's not good or bad in of itself. It's how we use it.
How we use it, and how we don't use it.
When I was in wilderness the first time, one of the students picked up, did I tell you that? He picked up a shovel and started beating everyone, all the staff. They had to bear mace him.
I think I remember that.
He was screaming so loud. Oh my God. They evacuated us up the mountain. This guy's just taking people's knees out with a shovel, and the staff are not armed with any sort of weapon. Steel shovel, of course, not like a little cheap plastic shovel. And we get evacuated up the mountain, and we go up at least a quarter mile, and they bear mace him, and we just hear him screaming. Ah! And it was just like, that guy didn't get pepper sprayed. He got bear maced. I mean, that's like way worse than pepper spray, because that's all they had. So apparently he went to the psych ward. He was 15 years old. I don't know what happened to him after that. Where do you think he is today? That kid could be having a normal life, or he could be in prison. We don't know.
No.
That's a weird thing. Okay, I'm already behind on comments again. Wow. Dust to Dust says, woman likes stability. Just find a way to keep a stable income and lifestyle. Yeah, some women. That's true. Michael says, Dust to Dust says, then I'm single forever. I'm a musician and work retail. Well, don't get your hopes down, Michael. Not all women like the same things. So you have every chance to find your way through it. Dust to Dust says, LOL, you and me both, pal. Still give it time and find ways to improve. Absolutely. Mercury says, a lot better and a lot worse. Well said. Talking to you, Dad. Jonathan Breckle says, Merc, I think it creates a disconnection. Ironically, on an intimate level as a whole, I still believe you can intimately get to know someone's personality, but it also could be their persona digitized. Gloff says, I'm getting too distracted at work. I have to go. Good for you. I talked to Mercury the other day, and I said, if the only outcome of us doing YouTube is that everybody gets off YouTube, then we've done a good job. If we go down to no views per video because everybody was so inspired by our videos to go live their life and do what they love, and that didn't include listening to YouTube anymore, that would be fine. Or if it did include listening to YouTube, which it certainly can, you can have a very productive life and still listen to YouTube and watch TV and have your own things that you do for entertainment, then that's great too. But I thought that was funny. The idea of doing such a convincing job on self-improvement that everyone just leaves. That would be cool for everybody. Mercury says, excellent point, Jonathan. He also says, bye, Gloff. Have a good day. Michael says, and I like to think there are quality women in Canada. Not everyone is some crazed out leftist. Remember Lindsay Shepherd? She's Canadian. I'm sure there are lots of girls who think like her. Social media has positive aspects, but it brings a lot of negative aspects. It has the trade-off of centralizing competitive markets, including the dating market. Yeah, that's interesting. I think just being authentic, you'll find someone. If you know, there's lots of people on this planet. What is it? Almost 8 billion now? 7.5 billion. If you just be true to yourself and do what's important to you and follow your own values and don't worry about all the results, I think that you'll find, like, chances are that somebody out there is like that you might be able to find. So if it hasn't happened yet, then stick with it, and it could happen anytime. Chances are it will happen.
Yeah, you put it out there. You know, you ask for it. Don't give up. Just keep putting it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any closing thoughts, everyone, before we leave this stream behind in Nebraska, where it was founded and created and experienced? Any last second musings? We're really glad to do this. This was fun.
Yeah.
Quick question from Jonathan. Go ahead. Thanks, Dust to Dust. Dust to Dust says, enjoy your trip. Really, thank you all for staying with us for an hour and a half. Most of you stuck right by our side through the ups and downs, the entertaining and the boring parts. So we appreciate that. And that's what makes YouTube worth doing, is having people stick with you and be there with the conversation. So thank you very much. Jonathan, go ahead, write your question if you still have one. I'll be happy to answer it. Michael says, I was born behind the Iron Curtain. We had centralized everything. Don't we live in Poland by the book? We had an underground economy for everything. Why can't we live in an underground economy for dating, friendship, etc.? Do you pick up on what he means by all that?
Not exactly. I mean,
I was born behind the Iron Curtain. We had centralized everything. Don't we live life in Poland, quote unquote, by the book? We had underground economy for everything. Why can't we have underground economy for dating or friendship? I guess maybe I just don't understand, because I don't know what it's like to be in Poland or the Iron Curtain. So I have no idea what the context is.
but I mean, there is underground economy for dating, right? I mean, there's all kinds of apps, dating things, and privacy, and isn't there?
There's one-time encounters on Craigslist. I don't know.
Isn't there? Seems like there's underground. There was that Madison something site that was all for married people. It was a big scam on.
There's
you wanted to cheat on your wife or husband, you went on this site and
Really?
find someone else that wanted to.
Wow.
Yeah, that was very underground.
Yeah.
And then it got exposed.
Yeah.
It was a big scandal.
Yeah, I bet. There's farmersonly.com. That's cheesy slogan that we always see on commercials. You don't have to be lonely at farmersonly.com. I just did a free plug for them. Actually, I should get a phone call any minute from Farmers Only offering compensation for that advertisement. That'll be $200, please, Farmers Only. If they did approach us, Mercury, would we advertise the dating site? Just do a couple dating site plugs. Go to farmersonly.com. You don't have to be lonely anymore. Yeah, Farmers Only.
Farmers Only, never lonely.
Farmers Only, never lonely. I tried farmersonly.com and it worked for me. Anyways, we got to get to Jonathan's question. Essentially, I feel like I've given up everything in order Essentially, I feel like I've given up. Oh, sorry, I missed your first one because I was in my. I was doing a plug. I was doing a plug for Farmers Only, so I lost track of all these comments. I find myself on a journey, Jonathan says, trying to find myself. I have given up almost everything I enjoyed doing in the past. Now I find myself feeling lost. Essentially, I feel like I've given up everything in order to find a better way of living. Did you go through a lost period throughout your journey, and how did you get through it? Absolutely. That's fundamental. That feeling lost is the first step. It's like stepping into the unknown, abandoning your previous structures and conceptions and safety nets, and you're on a journey, man. You took the courageous leap of faith. That's the voluntary encounter with the unknown that Peterson talks about. That's the willingness to face the dragon of chaos and to attempt to make some sense of things on your own, in your own struggle. So what I would say is that you're right where you're supposed to be. That's exactly what happens when you let go of the old. And it happens throughout life to varying degrees, in my experience, especially when you're trying to grow. So what you want to avoid is nihilism and stuff like that, because when you let go of old structures and you don't have new ones to replace them, it can be easy to feel like reality has no footing whatsoever. So it's important to have some sort of support that can, like, you have to meet the wise man on the side of the road. You have to meet Merlin, you have to meet Gandalf, you have to have some sort of, and it doesn't have to be a person, but it can be a group, it can be a book, it can be a way of seeing life, it can be a lot of things, but you have to find your Merlin, you have to find your Gandalf, because that's who helps you navigate the unknown and become the regenerative hero who can articulate order out of chaos. So I would say, like, look for that thing, that Yoda, that wise old man, that whatever that looks like, however that manifests in your life, to give you direction, to give you some, to be the Rafiki that bats you over the head and and makes you think about things differently. And that might be partly sorting myself out, our community, and we're going to set up a Discord and we have audience conversations. Dude, just shoot us an email, and Mercury and I'd be happy to talk to you. sortingmyselfout0@gmail.com. That could be somebody else, a mentor in your life. Like I said, it could be a book. It could be anything. I don't know what it looks like for you. All I know is that if you look for it, it will come, and you'll find it, man. Anything you would say?
Yeah, what comes up for me, and I love all that, comes up for me is just continue to take actions that are consistent with the result that you want. Just it's life takes action, and action begets action. So if you want something to be different, just take some action and don't be attached to the specific results. Just keep taking action and action and action and action.
Yeah, and we got your back, man. Seriously, email us, and Mercury and I will talk to you, and we will get to know you, and we do that for our audience guests all the time. So all you have to do is email us, and we will try to get to know you and what you're trying to change and how you're doing it and what you're letting go of and what you're stepping into, and we'll help you come up with a framework that works for you in your own words and your own meaning. And it will only be one step. Obviously we are just one part of that journey, but we could at least nudge you hopefully in a good direction. And really it's the direction that the wisdom that you have within yourself that we would help you find. So so please don't hesitate. Mercury says, Eric, thanks for putting up with all the difficulties with raising Ryan. We're glad that he's here. I'd love to have you on a podcast with both of us sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think now that we've broken the ice, that's certainly possible. We're going to be in Maine, and we're going to be doing campfires. I'm going to be doing podcasts and live streams by the campfire.
Sweat lodges.
Yeah, we have a sweat lodge. We're going to do a sweat lodge. Unfortunately, we can't bring the camera into the lodge. It's unbearably dark and hot in there. But it's a deep experience in there. And yeah, Jonathan, before I let you go, I'm curious to know, do you have any follow-up questions? And I would say email us because you're asking here, unsure of how to get through it and if I should do it on my own or seek help. Just let's talk, man. Send an email. We'll have a conversation if you want. We might be able to help you find some reading and some resources that could help you out. Dustin, I would say that everything has a purpose no matter what, but I'm guessing you're saying you've lost hope. I know that feeling for sure. Hey man, even Luke Skywalker lost hope. And when he was trying to become a Jedi. It's part for the course. So don't get too down on yourself. You should be celebrating the fact that you're here and that you let go of the old in an attempt to step into the new. That's huge. Celebrate that, and the next steps will become available before you know it. Getting lost it's part of it, man. It's part of the curriculum. So don't make it mean anything negative. It doesn't. It's all part of it. So, all right, everybody. Mercury says, oftentimes, to Jonathan, only one finds freedom when one is lost. Jonathan says, I appreciate the advice. Sounds good. Let's talk when you have time. Absolutely. Yeah, just send me an email just saying, hey, let's talk when you have time, and we'll schedule something as soon as possible. Okay? And it'll probably be sometime in the next couple of weeks we can make it happen. So we're looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone. Any last words on your part?
No, just thanks for letting me be part of the program, but I've enjoyed it.
Did I read Mercury's comment that says, thanks for putting up the difficulties of raising Ryan?
Yeah,
okay,
you're
good.
welcome,
I did read
Mercury.
that. Yeah.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye. Friday, 9:30 a.m. MST, 11:30 a.m. EST. So I'll see you then. Be in New York.